You've been doing everything right, watching what you eat, cutting back on sugar, maybe even walking every morning. And yet, the weight around your belly won't move. Your digestion feels off. You're bloated after meals you used to handle fine. Your energy drops by 2 in the afternoon. And every checkup, the doctor tells you the same thing. Watch your diet, cut your calories, lose the weight. But here's what your doctor almost certainly never told you. The reason your fat won't budge after 60 has very little to do with how much you eat, and everything to do with what is or isn't living inside your gut right now. My name is Dr. Favor Adeyemi. I've spent over 2 decades working with patients over 60, sitting across from men and women who are doing everything right and still watching their health go in the wrong direction. And what I'm about to show you today completely changed the way I think about weight, fat storage, and what is actually happening inside the body after 60. Because there is one single food eaten daily in rural Japan that does something no probiotic supplement, no fat-burning pill, and no calorie-restricted diet can fully replicate. It stops fat storage at the hormonal level, and it rebuilds the dead and dying gut bacteria that after 60, most of us have lost entirely and never been told about. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your gut bacteria are the hidden engine behind your weight, and why rebuilding them with this one food may be the most powerful metabolic shift you can make. Stay with me, because there is something I need to show you first that changes the entire picture. Here is something that most standard medical appointments never cover. After 60, your gut is dying. Not dramatically, not suddenly, quietly, slowly, over years, and almost no one talks about it. When you were in your 30s and 40s, your gut hosted a thriving, diverse community of roughly 38 trillion bacteria, different species, different functions, some that produced hormones, some that regulated inflammation, some whose entire job was to send a signal to your fat cells that said, stop storing, start burning. By the time most people reach their 60s, that community has collapsed. Studies published in the journal Nature and the British Medical Journal confirm that microbial diversity in the gut falls by as much as 40% between ages 40 and 70. 40%. That is not a minor shift. That is an ecosystem collapse. And here is what that collapse means for your body. The bacteria you've lost, and this is the part I want you to really sit with, were doing jobs your body cannot do on its own. One of those jobs was producing a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate. Butyrate is the primary fuel for the cells lining your colon. Without it, that lining breaks down, becomes porous, allows particles to leak into your bloodstream that were never meant to be there. Doctors call this intestinal permeability. Most people know it as leaky gut. And it triggers something that rewires your entire metabolism. Chronic, low-grade inflammation. That inflammation travels through your bloodstream and reaches your fat cells, specifically the visceral fat stored deep around your organs. And here is where fat storage stops being a matter of calories. Inflamed fat cells become insulin resistant. They stop responding to the hormone that manages blood sugar. The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. More insulin in the bloodstream means one thing above everything else. The body's primary mode switches from fat burning to fat storing. You are not gaining weight because you're eating too much. You are gaining weight because an ecosystem inside you collapsed, and nobody replaced it. I want to tell you about a woman I'll call Yoshiko. Not a patient of mine, but a research subject in a gut microbiome study I was part of 8 years ago. Yoshiko was 68 years old, retired school principal, sharp, disciplined, meticulous. She ate what any well-meaning nutritionist would call a good diet. Grilled fish, brown rice, vegetables, no fried food, no soda, minimal sugar. She walked 40 minutes every morning without fail for 15 years. Her weight had been steadily climbing since she turned 62. Not dramatically, but relentlessly. 6 pounds 1 year, 4 the next. A slow, stubborn accumulation that no amount of discipline seemed to stop. Her GP told her she was getting older and her metabolism was slowing. Take it easy on the portions, perhaps a bit more exercise. She was already doing more than most people half her age. When we ran her gut microbiome analysis, what we found stopped the research team mid-conversation. Yoshiko's gut had almost completely lost an entire genus of bacteria called bifidobacterium. Bacteria responsible for regulating a hormone called GLP-1, which directly controls insulin release and signals the brain to stop eating. It had also lost most of its lactobacillus populations, which produce the lactic acid that keeps the gut lining intact. Her gut wasn't just depleted, it was structurally broken in a way that no calorie deficit could fix. We'll come back to Yoshiko, because what happened next, 6 months after we changed just one thing in her daily routine, is the reason I'm making this video today. The food is called natto, N-A-T-T-O, and if you've never heard of it, you are not alone. It's one of the most nutritionally extraordinary foods on Earth, and outside of Japan, it is almost completely unknown. Natto is made from fermented soybeans, specifically soybeans that have been fermented using a strain of bacteria called Bacillus subtilis, or Bacillus subtilis natto. This fermentation process has been practiced in Japan for over 1,000 years. It produces a sticky, stringy food with a strong smell and a distinctive taste that takes some getting used to. In Japan, particularly in rural areas where it is eaten every single morning for breakfast, the populations live measurably longer, have measurably lower rates of cardiovascular disease, and maintain healthier body weights well into their 80s and 90s. That is not a coincidence, and the science is now showing us exactly why. Let me walk you through what natto does inside your body, step by step. It stops fat storage by restoring insulin sensitivity. Natto contains an extraordinarily high concentration of a compound called vitamin K2, specifically in the form called MK7, menaquinone 7. Most Westerners are severely deficient in this form of K2. Here is why that matters for fat storage. K2 activates a protein called osteocalcin, which stimulates the pancreas to produce insulin more efficiently. More efficient insulin means your cells respond properly to blood sugar, which means your body doesn't need to flood the bloodstream with excess insulin. Less excess insulin means the fat storage signal is reduced. A 2020 study published in Nutrients found that daily MK7 supplementation significantly improved insulin sensitivity in older adults with metabolic syndrome. Natto contains more bioavailable MK7 per serving than any other food on Earth, roughly 850 micrograms per 100 gram serving. No supplement comes close to that bioavailability. It rebuilds dead gut bacteria through living bacterial colonies. Natto is a probiotic food, but not in the weak, diluted sense that most yogurt products claim. The Bacillus subtilis natto strain is what scientists call a spore-forming bacteria. This is critical. Most probiotic bacteria are fragile. They die in stomach acid before they ever reach the intestine where they're needed. Spore-forming bacteria survive stomach acid. They arrive in the small and large intestine alive and active. Once there, they colonize. They produce enzymes that stimulate the regrowth of native bacteria, including the bifidobacterium and lactobacillus species that produce butyrate and regulate inflammation. A 2019 clinical trial in the journal Beneficial Microbes showed that regular consumption of natto significantly increased gut microbial diversity in adults over 60 within just 8 weeks. 8 weeks. That is how fast a degraded ecosystem can begin to recover when given the right input. It contains nattokinase, an enzyme that improves circulation at the cellular level. The fermentation process produces an enzyme found nowhere else in nature, nattokinase. Nattokinase has been studied for its ability to dissolve fibrin, the protein that forms blood clots, and to improve blood viscosity. What this means practically is better circulation. Better circulation means more efficient delivery of oxygen and nutrients to muscle tissue, and critically, more efficient removal of metabolic waste products from fat tissue. This is part of why fat stored in the visceral region, the stubborn belly fat, begins to mobilize in people who consume natto regularly. The cellular environment improves. The tissue becomes metabolically active again, rather than dormant and inflamed. It regulates the hunger hormones that after 60 begin to fail. After 60, the gut's ability to produce GLP-1, the hormone that signals fullness and regulates insulin, diminishes significantly. This is why many older adults experience what they describe as never truly feeling satisfied after a meal, or feeling hungry again within an hour of eating. Natto's probiotic content directly stimulates the L cells in the gut lining that produce GLP-1. A richer, more active gut microbiome produces more GLP-1. More GLP-1 means the brain receives a clearer satiety signal. You stop eating when you are actually full. You don't seek out extra food 2 hours later. And critically, insulin is managed more precisely, which keeps fat storage switched off between meals. It reduces the chronic inflammation that locks fat in place. This is perhaps the most underappreciated mechanism. The Bacillus subtilis strain in natto produces a compound called polygamma-glutamic acid, gamma-PGA, which has been shown in multiple studies to modulate the inflammatory response in gut tissue. As gut inflammation drops, fat cells receive less of the chemical signals that keep them in storage mode. Research from Keio University in Tokyo demonstrated that regular natto consumption reduced key inflammatory markers, including C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, by statistically significant margins over a 12-week period. These are the same inflammatory markers associated with visceral fat accumulation, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome. Quick question before we move on. Have you ever been told by a doctor or read anywhere that your gut bacteria might be connected to your weight or your fat storage? Write yes or no in the comments right now. I read every single one, and what I see in those responses tells me a great deal about what information is actually reaching people versus what stays buried in research journals. Go ahead, yes or no. Then keep watching, because what comes next is the part that changes everything. Now, the critical question. How do you actually eat natto? And how much? And when? Because this is where most people get it wrong, even the ones who find it and try it. Let me give you the practical protocol, built directly from the research and from the traditional Japanese consumption pattern that produced the outcomes we've been discussing. How much to eat? The standard serving used in clinical studies and the standard breakfast portion eaten in Eastern Japan is 1 pack of natto per day. A standard natto pack is approximately 40 to 50 grams. That is roughly 3 tablespoons, not a large amount. This single serving delivers approximately 380 micrograms of MK7 vitamin K2, several billion live Bacillus subtilis natto spores, a full dose of nattokinase, and meaningful amounts of protein, fiber, and iron. 1 pack, once a day. That is the full therapeutic dose. When to eat it. The title of this video says every morning, and that is intentional and supported by the research. Consuming natto in the morning, before or with your first meal, primes your gut environment for the entire day. It means the Bacillus subtilis colony is active during the period of highest digestive activity. It also means the GLP-1 regulatory effect is present at breakfast, which is when insulin management matters most. Studies tracking natto consumption patterns in Japanese populations found that morning consumption, not evening, correlated most strongly with lower BMI and better metabolic markers. Eat it in the morning, every morning. Consistency over 12 weeks is where you see measurable change. Where to find it? Natto is available in the frozen food section of most Asian supermarkets and Japanese grocery stores. It typically comes in small polystyrene packs of 3, frozen, with a small sachet of soy sauce and Japanese mustard included. It is extremely affordable, usually under $3 for a pack of 3. Online retailers, including Amazon, also stock it frozen. Look for brands that list only soybeans and Bacillus subtilis natto on the ingredient label. Avoid any product with added sugars, thickeners, or flavor additives. These are processed variants that compromise the probiotic content. How to eat it. If the taste is challenging, natto has a strong, pungent smell and a distinctively sticky, stringy texture that many Westerners find confronting at first. This is the honest truth, and I'd rather tell you now than have you give up after one attempt. Here is what works. First, serve it over warm white rice or plain brown rice with the included soy sauce. The rice absorbs the flavor and changes the texture experience significantly. Second, mix it with a small amount of sliced green onion and a few drops of soy sauce and rice vinegar before eating. This is the traditional preparation and genuinely changes the flavor profile. Third, if both of these are still difficult, natto can be blended into a miso soup. The heat of the soup reduces the stringiness while keeping the probiotic spores intact. Spore-forming bacteria, unlike fragile lactobacillus strains, survive moderate heat. One critical warning for those on blood thinners. This must be said clearly. If you are currently taking warfarin, Coumadin, or any other anticoagulant blood thinner, you must speak with your doctor before adding natto to your daily diet. The vitamin K2 content in natto is exceptionally high, and vitamin K interacts directly with anticoagulant medications by affecting clotting factors. This is not a minor interaction. This is a conversation your doctor needs to be part of before you begin. For everyone else, natto's effect on circulation is beneficial, but for anyone on blood thinners, doctor first, always. The natto daily protocol. 1 pack, 40 to 50 grams. Natto, every morning, with rice, miso soup, or plain, for a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks, alongside, not instead of, your regular medical care. The natto is the tool, consistency is the mechanic, time is the medicine. I promised I'd come back to Yoshiko. After we completed her gut microbiome analysis, we added one thing to her daily routine. 1 pack of natto every morning. That's it. Nothing else changed. Same diet, same walks, same meals. Just natto every morning, with rice and a little green onion the way her grandmother used to make it, before convenience food replaced it in her household. At 8 weeks, her gut diversity markers had improved measurably. Bifidobacterium populations were partially restored. Her GLP-1 levels had risen. Her fasting insulin, the number that reflects how hard your pancreas is working, had dropped by 22%. At 12 weeks, she had lost 6 pounds, without changing a single other thing. But more importantly, the bloating she'd lived with for 5 years was almost completely gone. Her energy in the afternoon had stabilized, and she told our research coordinator something that I've thought about many times since. I feel like my body is working with me again. For years, it felt like I was fighting it. She wasn't fighting her willpower. She wasn't fighting her calories. She was fighting a broken internal ecosystem. And once the ecosystem was restored, even partially, the body began doing what it had always been designed to do. Why didn't anyone tell her this sooner? That question doesn't have a satisfying answer, but the information exists, the research exists, and the food itself has been sitting in Japanese grocery stores for 1,000 years, waiting. Let's bring this all together, because I don't want you to leave this video with a complicated list you forget by tomorrow. Here is what you now know that most people your age don't. After 60, your gut bacteria are dying, and that collapse is directly driving fat storage through insulin resistance and inflammation. The bacteria your body has lost were producing butyrate, regulating GLP-1, managing your hunger signals, and keeping fat storage hormones switched off. No calorie deficit fully replaces what those bacteria were doing. Natto, 1 daily pack every morning, contains the only food source spore-forming probiotic that survives stomach acid and actively rebuilds those dead bacterial colonies. It delivers the highest bioavailable source of vitamin K2 MK7 on Earth, restoring insulin sensitivity. It produces nattokinase, which improves cellular circulation and mobilizes dormant visceral fat. And it reduces the chronic gut inflammation that keeps fat locked in storage mode. 1 food, 1 pack, every morning. Give it 12 weeks. Here is what I want you to do this week. Not someday, not after your next appointment, this week. Go to your nearest Asian supermarket or order natto online. Try it 3 mornings in a row before you decide how you feel about it. Mix it with warm rice and a little soy sauce. Your gut bacteria don't care whether you enjoy the taste on day 1. They care about consistency. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever tried natto? Or did you learn about it for the very first time today? Tell me in the comments. And tell me, after watching this, which part surprised you most? I read every comment, and the conversations in that section are some of the most genuinely interesting exchanges I have each week. If this video helped you understand something about your body that your doctor hasn't had time to explain, please share it. Send it to someone in your life who's been struggling with weight or digestion and has been told it's just part of getting older. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do for the people we love is hand them information that changes the question they're asking. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Every week, I bring you honest, well-researched, clinically grounded information about what your body needs after 60. Not trends, not supplements with celebrity endorsements, just the science, explained clearly in a way that gives you real tools. Medical disclaimer. Everything shared in this video is general educational information based on published clinical research. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace your personal medical care. If you are taking warfarin, Coumadin, or any anticoagulant medication, speak with your doctor before consuming natto. Do not stop or change any prescribed medication without a full conversation with your physician. Bring this information to your next appointment. Your doctor is your partner in applying it safely.